All right, so this Knife Thoughts video is going to be 5 reasons why the Spyderco Native 5 is an EDC classic. So if you are looking for a great everyday carry knife, then this might be a great video for you. So the Spyderco Native 5 is one of the most often recommended and really highly thought of everyday carry knives on the market right now. So this video won't be groundbreaking in the sense that it's the first time that this knife is being recommended, or even probably that someone has said the things that I'm going to say about this knife make it great. But it is the 5 reasons that I think make this knife a really, really great EDC knife, and also might just be a great video if you are thinking about getting one of these to help convince you to, or if you are looking for what should be your next or first EDC knife purchase, then this might help, I think, steer you in the right direction with such a great little classic EDC knife as the Spyderco Native 5. So the first reason that I think the Native 5 is a really great EDC knife is the handle. And for me, ergonomics or how the knife feels in my hand when I'm using it, and honestly when I'm just opening and closing it for fun, is really important. I want a knife to be ergonomic and feel good in my hand, feel like it fits my hand, really, no matter how I'm using it, right? If a knife doesn't feel good in your hand, it's not going to be something that you enjoy taking out of your pocket and putting to use, or just enjoying, like I say. And the Native 5's handle is very, very ergonomic, particularly for the size of the knife, which I'll mention later. I have pretty wide hands. I don't have long fingers, so sometimes taller knives don't fit my hand as well. But I do have a wide hand, so sometimes shorter knives don't fit my hand as well. But the great thing about the Native 5 is that it does fit my hand well, despite being not a huge knife. So as you can see, it has what Spyderco calls a 50-50 finger choil. That means that part of it is made up by the blade and part of it is made up by the handle. And what this is it allows you to put your index finger up in that choil and really get a good choked up grip. And then notice that when I do that, I have plenty of room left in this main grip area so that my pinky isn't being crowded and my other fingers have lots of room to spread out. So you can get a really full grip on this knife, despite, again, the fact that it is an EDC friendly size. I really like that. You can even use this finger choil to get way up near the tip with your index finger. This is kind of a test made famous by Ben Peterson that did a lot of Blade HQ videos and now has NAFSCO and has designed a couple of knives of his own. And I think that this is a really useful grip when you're doing really fine cutting, maybe cutting paper or something like that. It's useful to be able to do that, and the finger choil really helps with that. But even with the main grip area, I can get a really comfortable grip. Now, my pinky finger does kind of start to go off the end, but because it's a rounded end here, it's not the most abrupt butt of a knife, particularly on a smaller knife. I can still use this grip without it being uncomfortable, and with it really being comfortable in use. I've used my Spyderco Native 5, which I'll show you later, quite a bit, and have never had an issue using this main grip area, although I will say that I more often use the finger choil. The other thing I like about the handle is that you have different options, but I actually really like this FRN, which is an injection molded plastic. I love the bidirectional texturing. It makes it so that this knife just really locks into your hand if you're using it hard, really bearing down on it. It also has 4-way clip placement, so you can do tip up or tip down on either side. So if you're left-handed, that's perfectly fine. And it has a lot of rounding along the edges, again, because of the FRN molding. Now, there are G10 versions, and those have similar handle shapes, different pattern, different texture to them. They still have some of that rounding, but I am particularly fond of the FRN versions. I just think that it's a very practical material. It doesn't, get messed up easily or break easily, and just works really well for a using knife, an EDC knife. So I think that the handle on the Spyderco Native 5 is really a great design, as well as just really helps to make the knife enjoyable to use and carry. So the next thing about the Spyderco Native 5 that I really like and I think makes it a great EDC knife is the blade. So this blade is kind of a drop point, kind of a spear point. The previous versions of the Native were more of a spear point. I think that this is a really great all-around use blade shape for a couple reasons. First of all, you get some straight edge here, or a relatively straight edge that allows you to do, kind of push cutting, like you're putting straight down pressure into cardboard or something like that, or rope, anything like that. Then you have a nice curved, almost continuously curved belly that gives you some ability to do rolling type cuts. And also even some push cuts like chisel type cuts. And then finally you have a really nice usable tip here that you can use for any kind of piercing or even type, twisting cuts, which, often I think you do have to use that type of cut. So I like the edge shape itself. And also it has a great grind. So you can see that this has a full flat grind from the top to the bottom. You can actually see that plunge line or grind line there. And so it makes for a nice thin edge that's going to cut well through really any type of material, especially what you do a lot of cutting in EDC usage, which is cardboard. It will cut really well through cardboard. And speaking of that, it has CPM S35VN steel, although I will mention that there are other versions later. The CPM S35VN steel on the normal version, and that is a great steel. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Sometimes people now get into like, oh, it's not a great steel anymore, there's lots of other options. Yes, there are lots of other options. There are lots of higher end steels, but CPM S35VN is a really great all-around steel specifically for EDC. You don't have to worry about it rusting. It's not that hard to sharpen. It keeps an edge really well, and it doesn't chip out that much. So if you're watching this video, not super knowledgeable on steels, take it from me, from using CPM S35VN a lot for EDC, it works great. Don't worry about it not being the highest end steel out there in this day and age. This is a golden age of steel. CPM S35VN is light years ahead of what would have been a high-end steel 5 or 10 years ago, really 10 years ago. So don't worry about that steel. It's great in my opinion and perfect for EDC. The other thing is the blade just looks good in my opinion, and part of the reason for that is that it has a low profile for a Spyderco knife. So to give you a quick example, this is a Spyderco Police, and you can see how it has this hump here to allow for the spider hole, the opening method. The reason that the Native doesn't have that hump is actually kind of interesting, a little bit of knife history. The Native was designed by Spyderco for sales in Walmart. The first Native was a lower end Spyderco, and apparently Walmart or whoever was, facilitating the sale or the order didn't think that people would like a knife that had that hump. So Spyderco and I believe Sal Glesser designed this one. This doesn't actually have his mark on it. I guess mine doesn't either. But they designed this knife to, not have that hump, so that when it sits in the handle or the blade well, it is a pretty streamlined, shape to it. So I think that looks good. The spider hole is super easy to use to open and close the knife, and it's just a great all-around blade for EDC type usage. The third thing about the Spyderco Native 5 that I really like, and I think makes it a classic, is actually the lock. Now, I'm sure a lot of knife enthusiasts and EDC knife enthusiasts will disagree with me on this because, again, there are newer, more maybe modern or fancy locks out there. Spyderco uses the compression lock a lot, the ball bearing lock, and there are others that other companies use. But for me, a nice, well done back lock, which is what this is called a back lock, is a great lock. It is super, super reliable. When you open this knife, unless there is a big piece of rock or, something like that in this area right here, it is going to lock up, and it's not really going to unlock until you manually press on this area here with your thumb. So it's super reliable, and in my opinion, more so than a lot of other locks. Now, not all locks, but I think it's a really trusty lock in my opinion. The other thing is that Spyderco does a really good job of the back locks on the Native 5. It is really smooth to open, and you can actually get it to drop closed. This one I just adjusted, so it probably needs oiled a little bit, but definitely you can get them to be drop closed smooth after a little bit of break-in. And I think that it just offers a really great, again, kind of overall value in what you get out of it. It's easy to use, it's not complicated, you don't have to use any like major fine motor skills where, like on a compression lock, you have to kind of pinch like this while you're doing it. It's nice and simple, you press on that lock and it unlocks. You open the knife, it's going to lock every time. You don't have to worry about anything hitting your hand or anything. And the nice thing on the Native 5 is that this finger choil also makes it so you can close it with one hand, let it drop down, and it's gonna hit against your finger on the choil rather than the edge. Some companies, when they make back locks, don't do that, and so you have to make sure that you're closing it, either controlling it with your finger or two-hand, get your hand out of the way. It's difficult to get your hand out of the way while closing a back lock. So again, that's something that some people might say is a downside, but when the knife is designed correctly and well, like the Native 5 is, you don't have to worry about it. Your finger is in the way of that choil rather than of the edge. So it's not a trendy lock, it's not the most modern lock, but I think that the back lock is a great lock. It's something that I have used a lot and never had an issue with, and so I really like and think that it's an asset for the Native 5 to have the back lock. So the fourth reason that I think that this is a really great EDC knife is the size. And this is something that a lot of people have talked about, but for everyday carry, for most people, you want to have a kind of moderately or medium-sized knife. And this really fits with that. It's not so small that you can't really use it for most tasks, but it's not so big that it is taking up a bunch of your pocket space, making it hard to carry your phone in your pocket. I carry a knife in my right front pocket. I carry my phone also in my right front pocket, and the Native 5 never takes up too much space in my pocket for that. It just is really easy to carry, again, with that 4-position pocket clip, and also with that low profile due to the humpless blade design. It really just can slip into your pocket. Not too much sticks out. Now you can get deep carry clips for this. It's not something I worry about. It will have about an inch or so sticking out of your pocket, but it's easy to get out of your pocket and not worry about it once it's in your pocket. The other thing about the size is that the blade is big enough that you can do most EDC tests. You get about 2.5 inches of actual edge length or true blade length. So with 2.5 inches of blade length, you can cut cardboard, no issue whatsoever. There's no cardboard. Well, there probably is, but the typical cardboard that you're cutting isn't going to be anywhere near too big to cut, too wide to cut with a 2.5 inch edge. And you can even do some food prep and general usage, even outdoor stuff, whittling a stick for a fire or for, hot dogs, something like that. It usually is enough. Now, I will say for me, I do prefer a little bit larger blade or more edge often, but I also love carrying the Spyderco Native 5. And though maybe kind of for non-practical reasons, I prefer a little bit bigger knife, when I carry the Native 5, I never really feel like it's not enough knife for EDC usage. Now, there are other usages like, hunting, fishing, other outdoor use that it might be a little small, but for everyday carry, I think it's a great size. The other thing about the size of this blade is that it's going to be legal in a lot of places. So it's not something I have to worry about myself where I, live and work and such. But a lot of people, the most common blade length limit in the US from what I can tell, from what I've read, is 3 inches. And this blade overall, from the handle to the tip, is 3 inches. So it's going to be, a good length for legality for a lot of people. So that's another thing that you have to, be aware of when you're buying an EDC knife, especially for the first time. Make sure you look into that type of thing. Don't get a knife that you're going to, carry and not realize that it could get you in trouble, or, buy it and then realize that and be out a bunch of money if you decide not to carry it. So I think it's a great size. Like I said, it fits my hand well despite being a little bit smaller knife, and you get enough edge out of it. Plus, it's legal in a lot of places. So I think the size is a real asset to the Native 5 as an EDC knife. So the fifth reason that I think the Native 5 is a great EDC knife is that there are a lot of options. So this is kind of the base model lightweight Native 5. Lightweight being because it has the FRN scales. There is also a G10 version, but there are lots of other versions. So in the lightweight configuration, there is a salt version, which is basically non-rusting. It really won't rust unless you maybe leave it in the ocean for 10 years or something. There is an S110V blade steel version, which is going to have super high edge holding. There's a Spy 27 version, which is a proprietary steel for Spyderco, kind of a new all-around type EDC blade steel. And then there are lots of exclusives, sprint runs, things like that, so that if you want to, you can get a knife that is different, that looks different, has a different handle color, a different blade steel, things like that. And I think that's really cool. For me, I actually carry a fluted titanium Native 5. Now, unfortunately, believe me, I wish this was still available. I would buy a backup for sure, but these are no longer available. They have been discontinued for a while, but this is one of my favorite knives for sure. This was given to me by my brother, so it does have, sentimental value to it also, but just as a knife, it is beautiful. I mean, I really love it, and I think it's a great knife and shows you that it's cool that you can have these different versions. Another really high-end version of the Native 5, which I don't have an example of, is they have some that are painted like brook trout or rainbow trout. Really cool things like that. It's one of Spyderco's flagship models, so you can assume that even if there's not a particular flavor of Native 5 that is available right now that you like, there will be other versions coming soon. So I think that's a great thing because it gives you different options, and if you get this knife in maybe the plain version and decide, like I said, you want a backup, you can get a different version that will give you some different options for carry. So I think that's a kind of a cool thing when you're picking out an EDC knife. Also, that the Native offers a bunch of different options of configurations. So this reason for the Native 5 being a great EDC knife didn't make the list because it's not really about the knife so much as the background of the knife, and so this isn't technically within the 5 reasons, but it's kind of an aside, and that's that this is a USA made knife. Now, I don't shy away from non-USA made knives. I have been making a lot of videos recently on another knife company that is based in China. I like Spyderco knives that are made overseas. Again, the police is made in Japan. So it's not a political thing for me, but it is kind of a good thing, a cool thing to see a knife being made in the USA. And frankly, the fact that Spyderco puts Golden, Colorado, USA Earth is just cool. It gives you the full address just in case you are, have your great grandchild has this knife and is like out in space and an alien finds it. They know where it came from. So again, not really a practical reason for this to be a great EDC knife, but if you buy this knife, you bought something that was made in the USA by a company that cares about the products they make and is generally well liked and well thought of. So I think that is worth something, though again, I don't shy away from non-USA made knives. So I just wanted to mention that real quick, that this is one of Spyderco's models that is made at their factory in Golden, Colorado, USA Earth. So if you are looking for an everyday carry knife, your first everyday carry knife, your 5th or your 50th, I think that the Spyderco Native 5 is a great option for all of those reasons that I mentioned in the video. It's a knife that again, I have carried a whole lot in this version and really love. This particular knife was loaned to, well, actually this knife was given to me to sharpen and clean up and return to a friend. So it wasn't really loaned for a video, but I thought I'd take use of it to make a video. And so I do appreciate that. I guess it's maybe even because, you know, the friend's getting a fresh edge and a cleaned up knife. But I do appreciate the opportunity to make this video. And I really believe in this model. I think it's a great model from Spyderco. And if you're looking for a good everyday carrying knife you can put in your pocket literally every day, or the days when you feel like it, this is gonna be a good option. So if you've enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and you can subscribe to my channel. I've got lots of other videos like this and more on the way. Make sure you click the bell also so you know when I post those videos. Also check out my social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Knife Thoughts, and my website knifethoughts.com, where I post articles on knives like this and knife related topics. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.